Everybody, ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much for participating in the xEssentials training courses that we've been putting on. This is the second in a very long series that we'll have over this year. And I'll talk very briefly about myself and get right into this. Today's topic is display layout. My name is Ron Howard. I appreciate you not making fun of the name. For the people that are older, you get it. For the younger people, you have no clue what I'm talking about. But I'm the owner of Extreme Sequences, and I got into this hobby in 2015 with my first Christmas show with some lightorama stuff. And after my first year, I felt a little empty from that, and I found on the internet Xlights, and that was December of 2015, the end of December, and I have not looked back since. This is my second year with Xlights and my second Halloween and Christmas show, and it's been a blast, and I can't say enough good things about the various vendors and people in the community and the developers who have made me building a business out of this really a lot of fun and rewarding. Let's get right to our agenda, and if there is a question, you will need to let the moderator know, and they can, I don't mind them coming in and saying, hey, we have a question, can you hold or pause for a second? And I'll do some temperature checks along the way to make sure that we're understanding where I'm going with this. Design principles. I'm not a painter, I'm not an artist, but I am a musician, and I look at things from a musical background, and I'm a photographer to some degree. And I just love the things that you can do with emotion. The sound, the music, the colors, they all have an impact. Alfred Hitchcock was the master at conveying a mood or message through his work. The absence of color, the addition of color, highlighting things. And you may not know it, but we as a community, we do this all the time. We trip over it accidentally sometimes, and some of us do it on purpose. And I probably fall into the category of accidental. But we talk about compositional, symmetrical, and asymmetrical balance. And these things really have a big impact in your show. A balanced composition feels right. It feels stable and aesthetically pleasing. While some elements might be focal points, like a mega tree that attracts your eye, or that big Bethlehem star at the top, there is no one area of composition that drives your eyes so much that it ignores the other areas. And sometimes that's not always true. Sometimes that mega tree really takes a hold, and that is the main focal point. For me personally, I like balance. I like a lot of things kind of moving here and there, but then subtracting them when it's necessary. Balancing a composition involves arranging both positive elements and negative space in such a way that no one design overpowers the other. It all works together in a cohesive, seamless whole. And I think that's what's neat about whole house effects. I love whole house effects that can move things around and still tell a story. And at the same time, isolate certain things because you're trying to create mood, or that intrepidation, that feeling of something's about to happen, but I'm not sure, the intensity, like a Hollywood film with peaks and valleys. And I think a lot of us do that by nature because we're so conditioned by watching Hollywood films that it seems natural when we do it. And I will push the right arrow. Here are 4 examples of some design principles. These are things that I have worked on. The one at the top left is something I'm working on right now for a client. And I love when things accidentally come together and I could say, I meant to do that. And by that, if we look at the cross and we look at what's circling the cross, it's an arrow. So no matter what your spiritual background is, I thought it was pretty interesting that subliminally there's a message here that through this cross, you get to go up. And I haven't talked to the family about this yet, but I'm waiting to see how they respond and what they think about this. I also love the fact that we have peaks. I wish my house had peaks like a home. When I buy a new home, it's going to have peaks like this because I love the way they look for Christmas sequences. Other things to consider was they wanted singing elements, and I had thrown some singing bulbs on there, and just it didn't fit. It didn't look right. It didn't look like the shape of the house. And with the Christmas trees, the singing trees, they look like the shape of the house. And there are a lot of sharp edges here, but we've been able to round that out with the centerpiece here, which will be a little tunnel, a little arch tunnel. And then the garage has nice curves to it as well. So things that are always straight and pointed and jagged, sometimes that conveys a message of edginess, which is great for some sequences, but sometimes you want to tone it down a little bit and create curves. The picture below it is Eric's home, and he has I guess you call it a rotunda, I'm not sure, where it circles around, and next year he put some lines going up. In this section right here, if he puts these lines going up, that's going to be a knockout look for this piece here. And that was a lot of fun to work on. This is Joe's place here. This is a mixture of AC and pixels. Originally, it was about 20% pixels and 80% AC, and now it's more of a 50-50. There's a lot more pixels as we got going, and his tree got bigger, as happens with most people. You start somewhere, and it just starts snowballing. And this down here was a home that I had to help with. It was configured, and by that I mean there were props on the house, but there was nothing digitally done, and I had to go in and create everything. And my recommendations would be to create some verticals for next year. But in all of these, I like the impact of the effects because we have symmetry, we have isolation, we have common things where we can bounce and tell a story. We can make things run all the way down and all the way across and back up if we want to. So these are just some basic examples of things that I think work with homes. So when we get into this crazy term, propositional density, we begin talking about lines, shapes, colors, and all of these things are designed to convey meaning. And I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I am actually partially colorblind. I struggle with the pastel colors. I know what I like when I see it. I know what looks good to my eyes, and that's what I go with. So every element of your design is communicating to something. We covered that. Combinations of these elements convey additional information in the way elements interact with each other, like 4 mini trees that are interacting with each other, or the columns on Matt Roush's house here, or the snowflakes on the top peak right here, messing with these and bouncing back and forth, maybe a call and answer. So there's no wonder why we see so much commonality in our layouts where we have multiples of one thing. It almost seems natural. This would look very odd with one column, one twig tree, maybe one candy cane and a mini tree. It would just look out of place if you had them all 4 lined up here. There wouldn't be continuity, which is a huge term to understand. Continuity, keeping something cohesive in nature so that it flows when you put lights on it to music. And then it talks about density, and you all know I love density. If I had my way, I would have everybody on here start with 24 strands for their mega tree. I'd rather it be wide with density than super tall. So if you had to say, well, this year I'm going to go 50 up and next year I'll go 100 up, fantastic. I think your effects will look better. For the whole house, for windmills or fans and pinwheels and all these things, the more pixels you can put in the front, the more you can take advantage of some of those whole house effects. But that's just a style, that's just a preference. But let's face it, not all of us have homes that are this large. You know, I don't know how many lights are on here. It's not 50,000, it's not 100,000, but it's a lot. It's more than I have on my home. That being said, we have to look at maximizing small layouts. A lot of people have modest homes. If you live in California, the homes here are really expensive to have a large home, and people still want to decorate what they have. You have people that have mobile homes out in Texas, Louisiana, and they decorate, and they look amazing. So if we look over here, this is Benny's house, and Benny had approached me about doing some custom sequencing, and I took a look at the layout, and I said, okay. Well, there's a mega tree he had up here too, and then there's a matrix over here. I took them out, but I wanted to focus on what can make the difference of maximizing a smaller layout. You can still play, you can still light this thing up and make it look great. You can still have all the effects you ever wanted, but you have to become a little more creative. And the way I treated Vinny's house was I looked at the vertical lines here and said, what can I do with verts that would make it interesting? So I'm just curious, how many vertical lines do you guys see? Type in chat how many vertical lines you see. I'll give you about 5 seconds. Ed, what kind of numbers are we getting here?
14 pretty much across the board.
Fantastic. That's exactly how many there are. And so what I did to make this more interesting was create more elements or models from what I had. And I simply created submodels with every one of these windows and the door so that I would have 14 vertical elements that I could run effects on. So I could always keep some type of movement going and isolation. And then I did the same thing with the horizontals. So I have 1, 2, 3 horizontals this way and this one too. So actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 horizontals. And I applied the same principles over here with this home in creating as many verticals and horizontals as I could. And it creates nice effects where you can have things bouncing where this is on, then this is on, then this is on, and this is on. And you get them going in concert and it looks like a clock. You can't see what I'm gesturing, but you can make some pretty creative effects with that. So I'm a big fan of maximizing what you got. So Halloween is a huge time for us. We love decorating for Halloween. And a quick story, when I got into Xlights in 2016, it's January, and I'm viewing videos and I'm watching all these great people with their videos, the John Storms, the Matt Johnsons, trying to find something. And I stumbled upon this video that showed you how to do a layout in Xlights. And I nearly fell out of my chair. It was so easy. And what I had been trying to accomplish in Lightorama, I mean, literally, I was pulling my hair out. So I downloaded Xlights, I installed it, I had my house put together pretty quickly. And then it got to that thing called universes and channels, and I was so lost. I was just almost heartbroken because I was like, okay, I was so far with this. I understand how to build this stuff. How do I make it work? What's a controller? Pixels. What do you mean I have to cut pixels? I'm not an electrician. So I went into panic mode a little bit, but luckily it was January and I had time to learn. But I realized then and there that I was not going to wait until Christmas to test the stuff out. So I had this crazy idea. I've always done Halloween displays. Let's do a show for Halloween, and that will be my test grounds. That's my dress rehearsal. It's a great time to test your equipment, a great time to figure out how transmitters work if you want to use transmitters. It's a great time to understand how the controllers work because you're testing it in a live environment. And really, if you want to, you can start October 1 and get this thing going and do it the whole month. And you figure out so much stuff. And then for the month of November, you can kind of reflect and say, okay, this is what didn't work. I need to fix that. And then you correct your course. And by the time Christmas gets around, I will tell you, it is so much easier. This home here that you're looking at was a home in Louisiana. I was asked to have a complete layout designed and built in 5 weeks for a surprise birthday party for a 9-year-old who had really good grades suddenly. And they were going to invite 100 of his friends over for a surprise birthday party for a Halloween bash. And we had this up and running in 5 weeks, over 8,000 pixels, a singing pumpkin. It was a lot of work. And the cool thing was we'd also talked about making it ready for Christmas at the same time. So everything I did here, I always kept Christmas in the back of my mind. There's a controller over here. There's a controller over here. We'll need one over here for the tree. There's a controller up here. There's a controller up here. And really thinking about where we're going to splice things off to make sense of it. Will we have enough channels between this and the Mega Spider for these other items over here? And we did, and it worked out fine. So the transition was fairly simple, but I think the client didn't realize how much work was involved with all the pixels for all these models. And it was a lot of work for them to physically put pixels in and get it ready. But they did it. And so again, my suggestion is if you like Halloween and you see that as an opportunity to set up and test your show, it's a great time to do it. if this is first time for you and you're going to be setting up in November and expecting your show to go off without any issues in December, I will tell you people set up all year long and still have issues in December. That's just part of it. But you can lessen them if you plan ahead of time. All right. Which takes us right into Xlights. And we'll do some hands-on here quickly. It all starts with Xlights. I tell people that I coach and consult with and mentor all the time, you want to go buy all the models and props? Great. You want to order 10,000 pixels? Fine. But nothing will work with those things until Xlights is properly configured. And that begins with the Setup tab and defining your topology. How many controllers might I need? Don't know. It depends on how many lights you have and where you're going to put them. But you've got to start thinking about that. That doesn't mean you can't go ahead and start putting your layout together. But in the back of your mind, whether you're doing it that way or defining your topology first, because they'll flip-flop back and forth. You'll go back and forth and change things as you go, because James will come out with some new model and you're going to go, I got to have it. I am getting the reindeer with wings, whatever it is.
Ron, can you define topology for us?
Yeah, absolutely. In my mind, topology is the layout of controllers, universes, and channels needed within those universes to support the models in your layout. I liken it to a network. If I was going to put 4 TVs in my house and a computer and another game room, I would have to figure out how many outlets I might need to plug all the stuff in, where the wires need to go if it needs to be wired. If it's going to be Wi-Fi, do I have the right gear to support all of these models on my Wi-Fi network? So it's the planning stages. And we won't get too deep. I'll show you what I'm talking about. I will circle around so you can see what I mean by topology, because we're actually going to build something. But I think that's part of this. And it can be very confusing to people when we use terms like universes and channels. Man, this threw me for a loop in 2016. My whole show was built on absolute channels because that's absolutely all I knew to do. And really, there wasn't a lot of other options available at the time. And now we have universe addressing, and that's a heck of a lot easier. I think of channels as just buckets of information our lights need. A bucket is a universe. A universe holds 510 channels. 510 channels represents 170 lights. You can remember that stuff. If you know 1 pixel takes 3 channels, and that means only 170 pixels can be in 1 bucket or a universe, that's a good starting point. And you may have some models that take more buckets. The Living Light Show model for Bastoyo, I have 4 of those. They're 222 nodes. Well, that costs me more than a bucket of channels. I got to use 2 buckets. Then I have a whole bunch of channels left in that bucket, but that's okay. I like excess channels. They don't bother me a bit. And when it's time to go to my next model, I'm just going to say, well, I'm going to start on bucket number 3 and just keep going. So to me, a universe is nothing more than a bucket of channels that our lights need. And each light is stingy and wants 3. Seems simple enough. I wish it had been explained that way to me way back, but it was too scientific. That wasn't possible. You have to understand, there's science to this. I don't want to know the science part. I want to make it simple. Humanize this stuff for me. So there's that. Does the bucket channels make sense to people? Did I lose anybody? 1 for I get it. 2 for I don't know where you're from, brother.
Yeah, everybody's a 1.
Oh, I got lucky. All right. So the layout tab simply is the area where you are choosing your elements, and today it's even easier to choose these elements. My dream has come true, and I'm going to show you how easy it is to put some elements on there. And then, of course, the sequence tab, that is where you build your show. Real simple.
Ron, someone's got a question about buckets. What's the benefit of having extra channels in your bucket?
Well, each bucket already comes with 510 channels. Let's just say when you buy a bucket, just like when you buy eggs, you're getting 12 in the carton. You get 12 eggs. When you have a bucket or a universe, it comes with 510. Now, I'm not going to even talk about how you can get the option for more. And I'm not going to talk about how you can take channels out of that bucket because you don't need them. Yes, you can certainly do that. But for the sake of this conversation, just know that every bucket comes with 510 channels. And the reason we like 510 channels, well, if the charge of admission from our lights to turn on is 3 channels within that bucket, and we know we get 170, well, a light, that's divisible by 3. 510 is divisible by 3. A whole bucket of channels is 170 lights, RGB lights. Makes it simple. Okay, let's break it down a little bit further. There's your software. There's lovely Xlights. That should be .2, but that's okay. Xlights is where we define the topology. We put together our models that we want to represent what our show will look like when we sequence to it. When we are done with that sequence, and it is time for us to get it to a light. And remember that that one light's going to charge you 3 channels to turn on. We have to first send it to a player. And we have 2 flavors of players right now that Xlights loves to work with. One is called Raspberry Pi, which is simply a computer that will store instructions. We call these instruction files FSEQ. I don't know what FSEQ stands for. I just know it sounds cool. That FSEQ is nothing more than instructions to tell your controller what to do with the lights. And we need a player because we have multiple instructions. We've got 10 sequences. I have 10 FSEQ files. And it keeps it on there like a little player for us. It says, well, which FSEQ file would you like to play first? Well, I'd like to play Hallelujah first and follow it up with Jingle Bells. Fine, I'll do that. I'll send the FSEQs in this order. And the Pi player does it great. You also have Xschedule, which is software that comes with Xlights that does the same thing. The difference is it plays your FSEQ file from your computer. The other one is a standalone computer you can put anywhere. Run a cable to it, a network cable or Wi-Fi, and you're in business. So you can use either or. They both are players, and their job is to send FSEQ or instructions to a controller. The controller's job is simple. Hey, you, blue light, over there, attached to me. I'm going to send you over 3 credits of information. Turn on. And imagine it doing that at the blink of an eye to many strands of lights at one time. And that is how the show is run. We're sending instructions to the controller relays them to the lights, and the lights turn on. Blinkety, blinkety, flashity, flashity. Now, I have simplified that to the point some of you on here who have been doing this a long time have probably just thrown open the bucket next to you, and I get it.
Agreed.
But I say bucket. Make it simple. Make it as simple as you can. Questions? All right, so we're going to move on. Let's get to our live demonstration. So we have 2 choices here, and I'm going to let you guys vote on this. I can start building this, and I won't build all of it, or I can go to one that's already built and we can talk about it. I'll go to that anyway, but do you want to see how we start with just a few channels, few universes, and start dragging some lines on here and show you some things? Or do you want me to just go to the file? 1 for yes, you want to see some of this. I've been going for 25 minutes. So we have enough time to do it this way. Let me know. 1 for yes, 2 for no.
So, yeah, everybody says 1. So Ron, why don't you just highlight when you see a photo like this, what are some of the highlights that you look at? Are there architectural features, or what is it that you automatically go to?
Oh, I start looking at shapes. I see things that are exciting to me. This little pyramid shape up here looks fun. I see a centerpiece in here. I see a wreath around a circle. I see windows that are exciting because they're not just square. You can create some nice shaping here. And that's really fun for me. Again, seeing these peaks, I love that. And then we have another peak up here, or it looks like a pyramid. And I start looking at ways, how can we tell a story with this house? What can we do to it that would be a lot of fun? And then with these straight edges, I think, well, where are some curves? Looking for the sexy curves, and look at this brickwork right here. That is just begging for yard outlines. That just looks so cool. It'll be easy to mount onto this and all the way around here. And then, of course, everybody wants to have a mega tree, at least a high percentage of people. So we have to start looking, where are we going to put the mega tree? And I don't like this area over here because this tree's in the way. And where the picture's taken looks like a good place to watch the show from. So this area over here is plenty of room to put a mega tree without really interfering with the house. Some people put mega trees in front of their house and they pull it off and it looks great. But I always think if you can put it to the side, you're not covering up anything. So, and that's a preference again. I love the step down here with the sidewalk, these steps. I think there's a nice lines that we can create here. And again, doors. I see there's a step up here, so I think we can go all the way around the door. And again, be cautious of things that are going to get in the way. We've got some bushes and trees. And my focal point will be in this area right here. What can I do in this area for a whole house effect to make snow falling look really interesting? And then we have some challenges. We have a couple of trees here, and they're really not that big of a challenge. There's two ways I think I would treat these trees. My first idea would be to put a flood, like a 50-watt flood or maybe a 30-watt flood, and just uplight this thing to make it look really pretty. And it also creates some isolation and mood. And the same thing over here. You can wrap lights around this, the pixels, but you're not going to see a lot of it that's on the back side of each of these. So I don't know if I like that idea. Also, if the wind blows, the weather, they're not going to stay uniform, and they're really just going to kind of be spread out. Not to say they wouldn't look good. I think they would. In this case, you might even go with, if you have an AC controller, maybe LEDs in there. You could. But pixels would be preferable because you can still get them to blend in with the house. But my first idea would be to uplight this with some floods. And then the rest is just trying to fill in areas that make it look tasty, aesthetically pleasing, and still conveys the symmetry that we talked about a little bit earlier today before we got on the main call. And it looks like this chimney here is attached to this house. So this has just made it possible to put something nice and a centerpiece up here. So you've got a nice centerpiece up here that can pull attention for separation. You've got a long way to go here that you can run things up to it, that whole Holdman style. And then you can go this way. So you can go this way and this way, up to the peak here, up to the peak here, or both up to that peak. There's a lot of possibilities here for this home. Does that kind of answer the question there, Ed?
Yeah, thanks, Ron.
Yeah, no worries. All right, you know what we need to do? Let's go in here. I'm going to move pretty fast, so you can slow this down during when you rewind if you want. I'm going to add in some buckets of universes, folks, and I'm going to assume, I don't know what they're on. I'm just going to say that they're on a router system that uses 192.168.1. something, and I'll just say this is .51. Starting universe is 1. The only reason I might change this to 2 is if they had some Lightorama gear and we want to save that for universe 1, but it doesn't matter. I'm just going to say start universe 1. I want 30 buckets of channels, and I'm going to call this controller 1. Or I could just call it house. Doesn't matter. And I'm going to say, okay, and wham, look there. We have 30 buckets of channels. Each bucket comes with 510. Today only, folks. 510. Today only. And we're going to add another bucket of universes. And I'm going to call this 192.168.1.52. This is the second controller. Starting universe 101. Whoa, 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 Ron. What are you doing? What are you doing? Why are you skipping 71 universes? Because I like to roll that way. There's a really good reason to do this. And for the new people seeing this, you're probably thinking, well, wait a minute, controller 2 should start with 31, right? Don't do it. Don't you dare do it. I like leaving space between controllers because as I keep building onto this, I might need 40 more buckets of universes. I don't want to cap myself. So I always start the second controller another 100 up. If I go to controller number 3, it's going to start at universe 201, and I'll keep that going until I'm blue in the face, doesn't matter. So controller 2, okay? And again, we are telling it, because we're allowed to put 510 in there. We could put more, but I like 510 because, as we said before, each pixel wants 3 channels. And we click OK. Oh, what did I do? I didn't tell it how many, did I? Look at that. Let me delete that. Let me go back, add in this again, universe 192.168, and you'll get really good practice when you start doing this. And if you ever make a mistake, you can always delete and go back. You're not hurting anything by doing this. So starting universe is 101. I want, let's just say I want 32 universes for that mega tree. Be careful when you type these in here. It always leaves that 1 in there before you click OK. Just give it a good glance. Controller 2. So here's my IP address for that controller. That's what I'm going to give it. I'm starting at universe 101, 32 universes. The bucket is filled with 510 channels, controller 2, and it puts it in place right here, and we're done, and we click save. So that's part of the topology. I have defined 2 controllers with universes to get us going. And if I need more universes with that first controller, I'll simply right click and I'll say insert after, put some more E131 buckets of universes in there, or sorry, buckets of channels in there, and we're good to go. So you're never really capped off. And I like to call that future proofing, because we all add lights every year to our show. Just seems like the way we do things. So I have no models on here, and the way I work when I'm building something, I usually work top down, and I really like to focus on rich lines. Now, the way I used to put lines on my house is I would put this over here, and oh, let me delete that. Now, if this crashes on me, I'm gonna have to restart it, so okay. And I put a line up here, and I say, okay, that's Eve 1, then I go back over here, and I do Eve 2, and if I click this button up here twice, see how it's grayed out? Then I can go Eve 3, Eve 4, I just keep dragging and dropping, okay, until I turn it off so it stops. Well, I don't do it that way anymore. I think there's a better tool for creating outlines, a better tool for creating windows, and I'll illustrate what I like about the Polyline for Windows. My windows were not working correctly this entire year because I wired them backwards, because the window model is very specific. But let's put some outlines on this house. Let's just start here. I'm gonna go up here. I'm going to click, 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 and to deselect, you hit escape. And there's my first Eve. I'm gonna call this Eve 1. Done. What's really cool about the Polyline tool is I can segment each of these sections. If I know that this is 17 feet and I'm going to do 3-inch spacing and I do that math, I know how many pixels should be there. And there's this cool button right over here underneath the green square where it starts, that starting location. We can click on this individual segments, and you'll see here it's done some guesswork. It's saying, well, I think you got 34 up there, Ron. I think you got 12 here, and I think you got 4. I'm like, no, I've got a measuring tape. I got more than that. I've got 36 in that first one, and I've got 16, and I've got 10. And now we can see the spacing here for each one of these is different. So I have my segments, and this makes it really nice, because what's cool here is, what if I decide later I'm going to go to 2-inch spacing? Well, I'm simply just going to change the number of pixels in my segment. I don't have to redo this again. That makes it beautiful. All right, let's do another one. Let's create on the Polyline tool. Let's take this section right here. I'm going to do this little A-frame. I'm going to make this my Eve 2. I'm going to hit escape so I can move my mouse around without dragging it. I'm going to call this Eve 2. There we are. And I'll just keep the defaults. It's saying 26 and 24. Let's just make them both 26, because I think most people's homes aesthetically, architecturally are even, unless you bought it in East Texas, and it might be off by about a foot over here. That's just a joke because I grew up there. All right, so let's continue on. We'll just make just a couple more. I'm just going to do this guy up here. We'll call this Eve 3. And we'll leave those defaults. And I'll do one more to show you why this tool is really cool. I'm going to start right here. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go back over here. I'm going to go across and hit escape. And I'll leave the defaults. There's a cool feature here that allows you to put in a negative number. For instance, what if you had a pigtail here because you didn't want the side to illuminate, but you want it to start over here again? And that's as simple as going to your individual segments and say, okay, in my first segment, I've got 26. In my second segment, let's click on the right one here. There we go. My individual segments, I've got 35. I could tell it in this middle segment, I have 0. And then over here, I've got, let's just say, there's 20. What you're doing is you're telling it that even if these are connected through a pigtail, there's no lights. So for playback, you're not going to see anything here. And if you look at it, when I deselect, there's no lights there. So it's a great tool. I'm going to change it back because I know that we're going to have some lights there. But it's a great way of building your layout without having to create another element here, and it makes it nice and clean. All right, so there we are. We've created some things. You notice that I haven't really been doing anything with the channels. I've just been leaving them alone. It starts channel 1. That's absolute. I'll tell you right now, I will do 3 of these and no more, and we'll do some windows. And then we'll look at the other big layout to see what I completed when I did the whole thing. So you can see my vision for what I think this house could look like. What I'm going to do, and I'll kind of show you, I won't show you the shortcut. If we were to click in here, we have all these choices for assigning numbers to represent this. Remember, I told you before, Xlights is going to need to send information to a player. That player's got to send it to a controller. Controller's got to send it to these lights. Well, it needs to know where to go, just like your mail. When you address something, you're going to put a person's name, the city, state, zip code. Well, it's got to know where to go. And we do that by telling the element that it has to either be an absolute number, or it has to go to an IP address, which I don't recommend doing this. Or you could just tell it any and say, okay, start channel 1, universe 1, and you click OK, and you get this. Notice it gave it a #1:1. That simply means universe 1, channel 1. This is how I do everything. When I'm in here and I am assigning someone's layout, I am typing in #, the universe number, : start channel 1, and that's it. And I'm hitting save. And if we look up here in our window, you'll see that it is start channel 1, channel 1. It ends in universe 1, it ends channel 186. So we have 510 channels in that bucket, right? So we have plenty left over. The other 300 something that are left after this, I'm going to ignore. I don't worry about that right now. That's another conversation. This works fine. And I will tell you, I ran over 15,000 lights in my show with never changing this number 510. Could it speed up the things if you do and make it exact numbers? Possibly, but I was okay with it. So that's another conversation. Back to this. So I'm going to go to my second one that I did, which I believe was right here. I'm going to give this universe 2, start channel 1. Done. I'm going to go to, I think I was up here. I will give this universe 3, start channel 1. And my final one here, I will tell this universe 4, start channel 1. And we are done with the outline at this point. And we'll run a tool check sequence to see if there are any errors. We have a possible overlap on Eve 1 with a single line, probably because I didn't change it. 1, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 4, 1, and we'll be fine. I like this style of applying universes and channels because it's easy. If I give each of my models its own universe, I don't have to worry about things. It is so much easier, and it gives me plenty of overhead room. Okay, that's how I like to do it. Some people like Excel spreadsheets because they're fun. I hate Excel spreadsheets. And they like absolute channels because they're used to doing it with Excel spreadsheets, and they like staring at their monitors for hours upon hours upon hours. I like getting in here and getting it done as quickly as possible. So universe 4, universe 2, universe 3, universe 1. And we don't have enough lights in here to where it's going over on any of these universes. So we're good. All right, one more thing I want to show you before I go to a couple of things I'm going to show you is the Polyline Tool for Windows is to die for. Watch this. Go up here. I'm going to make my square. I'm going to go over here to the end. I'm going to click, hit escape so I can move away from it. I'm going to click on this top line. I'm going to tell it to define curve. And now when I grab this handle, I can drag this up to the shape of the window. How cool is that? And I'm done. You have to just love that. And while I'm here, I'm just going to tell this universe 5, channel 1, because it's quick and easy to do. I'm going to call this window 1. There we go. And whatever's in here is in here. I can look at the individual segments again and say, okay, this has 21 nodes going up. And again, I'd like to fix this and tell it's 21 up on each side. And we'll say 5 and 4 on the bottom. That's fine. We'll leave it at default. When you're measuring this out, you really want to put in the numbers. And what I'm about to show you next will illustrate clearly how important it is to have the right node count when using the Polyline, or any model for that example, and dipping into submodels. Earlier we talked about creating movement and isolations by turning a element or model into multiple elements or models. And I'm going to show you how to do that with this one right here. I'm going to click on submodels, and I'm going to add a submodel. I'm going to call this window 1. You can call it anything you like. This just makes sense for me. And I'm going to put in here L, window 1 L. Click OK, and it gives me an area here to put information in. And if you hover over these dots, it will tell you what that number is on that dot. That is 1. And it ends up here at, I should say 21, we hope, or 22. So I'm going to say, I'm going to click in here and go 1 to 22. When you click in this area out here, you'll see it highlight this area. There is my first submodel to create a vertical for isolation. Let's add another one. We will call this one WIN, window 1, right, or the right side. And again, I'll go over here and I'll look, that's 47 all the way to, looks like this is going to be 27, 47 to 27. Let's put that in. And there's my other vertical, and I will click OK. And
now, Ron, does it matter if it's 47 to 27 or 27 to 47?
In this case, it won't matter because I'm starting from the bottom on both. I prefer to do that because they will both chase up. When you get into other custom models, it does become important, such as something that has a matrix like the Santa matrix hat that Boscoyo has. There is an order in which you need to run the numbers for letters to scroll across and effects to look correctly. And we'll get in that in another advanced section. But for here, that's as simple as it is to create submodels. I'll show you another example of submodels. But before we do that, we call this window 1. We told it how many. Let's just put a window here. The reason I told you it's important to have this right now, because why would you redo everything I just did to put another window here? I'd rather just hit Control-C, Control-V, and that copies that window. And now I can just take it over here. It's already told it, hey, this is window 2. Well, this started with universe 5.1. I'll start this universe 6.1. Universe 6.1. And we'll hit save, and we're done there. That way, the first submodel you do, if you have multiple of any element, do the one first. Let me give you a great example. I'm about to share with you a model I worked on that James has in his store that when I messed up, I had to start over. And I messed up a few times. This was driving me crazy. I had no wine. I had nothing. I had coffee. That was it. So You guys have all heard about this create new download. I'm telling you, this is the cat's meow in Xlights right now. I could not be happier than to see this. We click on this down arrow here, and we click somewhere in our area, and we have access to stars, the Bethlehem star, chroma stars, and this list will continue to grow. If you don't see in here what you're looking for, one of the things you could do is click on this Tools, Purge Vendor Cache. You click on that, and basically what that does is it looks for any new models that might have just been added. So we'll click again, click in the area, and we'll look at our list, because I know that we have a singing tree that wasn't there earlier, so that's in there. That's beautiful. But I want to show you this mega spinner. So we'll go to our spinners, and this puppy right here, you click on it. It gives you information. First of all, it gives you a visual. It tells you what it's for. It's for Christmas. It's coral. It's 10 millimeter. It tells you the width and height, and it tells you the pixel count. Seriously, man, this is high fives like crazy. It also tells you whether it takes square, 12, what type of bulbs or lights, pixels, what will it take. This is important. A lot of people will go out and buy this stuff, and then they say, well, I just bought, 4,000 square nodes. Well, square nodes aren't going to fit in this spinner, brother. but what do you want for them? I know somebody will buy them from you. So this is really great. Great attention to detail went into this, and I couldn't be happier. Hats off to the developers and James for working on this project and making this possible. When you have the element you want, you click Insert Model, and boom, there we are. And we can drag a corner, and we can size this puppy and put this wherever we like. And I'll put it here. If you're not sure which way to wire this after you've purchased it and you've got it home, you've got your pixels, you've changed those square nodes into bullets that you need, you can right click on it and go to the wiring view, and it will show you right here, boom, this is the wiring view. It starts right here at the bottom, pick a spoke. It also tells you it is reverse view. If you want to see it from the front view, you can change it, that's fine, but I would recommend keeping it reverse view, because you'll probably have this thing sitting on a table somewhere and poking down into it, however you want to do that, and you start. When I designed this and started putting all these numbers in here, when I got to around, I don't know, 127 and realized I put 127 in twice, I nearly lost it a couple times, because there's a nice tool that allows you to automatically, when you click each square, it automatically advances the number. So when it was done right, I was very happy. I told you I was going to show you submodels on this. I created submodels in this to make it easy to get rid of this wagon wheel effect that I don't really like when they're all on at one time. My house is a Spanish style house, and I just don't like when they're all on and it shows the wagon wheel. So I was able to create a group with only the spokes. And if we look in here, you'll see that there's spoke 1, 2, 3, all the way to spoke 16. And then there's a separate model just for the wheel, which you could do some really great things with. Okay, and you'll see my madness in here for each one of these, where I had to go in and tell it what order they were in all the way through. I'll hit cancel, and there we go. There's our mega spinner. Alrighty, fun stuff. And just so you know why I created that second controller, because eventually we're going to have a tree down here. And this, guess what number this would start on with this tree? I'd probably do a 180, probably do 32 strands, because that's where I like 100 nodes. Michael Fitzpatrick's wife just had a heart attack seeing how much this is going to cost them. Sorry about that, Michael. And then I would tell this, this goes on a different controller. I'm going to say this starts on Universe 101, channel 1. Boom. Oh, did I do that right? I did. And there we go. The Polyline Tool is also great for creating these curves here. Now, let me show you the finished house that I put together. I've saved that. I'll go to over here to the layout presentation, demo 2. We'll open up this and look at the layout. Oh, I think I was in the wrong one. There we go. And this is what I put together for Michael's house. If this were my house, this is something I would do. I don't know if I'm super happy with the mini spinners over here. I think I'd want to maybe replace these with something a little more traditional and elegant in this section. Is the only thing I would really change. These are the 99 node pixel canes from Boscoyo. And again, all of these things came from this. The canes are in here, and I just love these things. These are the 99. Insert the model, you put it here, and there you go. And then you can resize it whichever way you like. I think these canes you can put facing either way, and I had changed these. You can't do it this way, but let me show you how you can change the facing, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong. I think you can face them either way. You simply go into the model data and you click this flip horizon, click OK, and now they're flipped. I don't know if you can do that with all models based on how they work, but I think the candy canes you can. And that's an easy, fast way. So again, all I did was go into, click on it, I go into the model data, and I tell it to flip horizontally. Okay. Are you guys still with me? I don't have much time left. I have 7 minutes. A 1 for yes, a 2 for I wish you would shut up. Let's delete that.
Mostly ones, so keep going.
Okay, cool. So let's do this. Let's see what this looks like with something. I'll open up. I heard the bells, something I put together earlier. I didn't do anything special with the mapping. All I did was map. And as a matter of fact, there was a mapping question earlier, and some people, I apologize if you came into this a little bit late. Somebody had asked, you know, how do you map? And when I was mapping this particular song, I would go to my import, and I would go back to my original I Heard the Bells. Let me put this back on Xlights. And I would find the I Heard the Bells, wherever you might be. That'll work. We'll open that. And this is what the mapping window looks like. And I can't show you in here because 18.2's got a bit of a little bit of an issue when you try to drag things over. It won't. It just, the window just kind of freaks out a little bit. They'll get that fixed, but I can't do that. But what I did do was install 18.1, and I created a mapping. Are you sure you don't want to save? Yes, I'm sure. And I created a mapping file that I can pull in here called I Heard the Bells. And I'll click no, and you'll see all the files mapped. My arches, where it says arches all, this guy was pulled over here to arches all. I can't do it now. And I was able to map my models. This is from my original sequence on my house, and I mapped them to Michael Fitzpatrick's house by dragging these over, the group level and the model level. So he had the LLS flake. At the time when I built this, I didn't have the Living Light Show flakes, so I just put in some chroma flakes on there to see how they would look. And then after I finished mapping it and saving it, I clicked OK. And what happened from there was all of this. All of these specs were put on the timeline here. And we'll see if we can play a snippet of this. The sound should be on. Let me do this. Let me turn the sound a little bit down because I know it can get really loud. There we go.
I heard the bells on Christmas Day. They're old familiar carols, songs repeat.
I'm gonna skip around a little bit.
Like a choir they're singing. In my heart I hear the bells ringing.
Okay, so not bad for just mapping and not tweaking anything in the timeline, not doing anything with this. And part of the reason for that is I kind of know instinctively which models I want to map over. And then the next thing, of course, is putting the singing lyrics on the trees. I don't know if Michael's into the singing trees. I just took a guess. I'll be using singing trees this next year, so that's that. Hopefully that wasn't too deep. There is a lot to this. I really try to keep it basic as possible and not overwhelm people. It's hard not to be overwhelmed in this hobby because there is so much that Xlights could do. I always tell people the thing that's greatest about Xlights is it does everything. The worst thing about Xlights is it does everything. It's a double-edged sword and needs to be treated with some respect. And part of that respect really is taking the time to be on calls like this and engulfing yourself in some education to get you off on the right foot. The Xlights project exists because of people like you. Help continue the project by making a donation today at xlights.org/donate.